The crucible hung in the darkness of space like a glittering jewel. It was massive, larger than most cities on Earth, and it served one purpose: combat. Inside its metal walls, species from across the galaxy gathered to watch warriors fight. Some fought for honor. Some fought for money. All of them fought because this was the way things had been done for thousands of years, Lieutenant. Day one sat in the observation deck, watching the crowds fill the arena below. He had been stationed here for 6 months now, part of Earth's diplomatic mission. His job was simple: watch, learn, and report back home. Humans were new to this galactic community, only 15 years since first contact, and they were still figuring out how everything worked. Next to him sat Ji Woo, another human diplomat. She had been doing this job longer than he had, almost 8 years now. She knew the politics, the customs, the unspoken rules that kept peace between dozens of different species. Day one respected her knowledge, even if he sometimes found the endless ceremonies and protocols exhausting. "Big crowd today," Jiwoo said, looking down at the arena floor. "The Rothkin champion is fighting. They always draw attention." Day one nodded. He had seen Rothkin before, of course. They were hard to miss. Standing over 2 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating that looked like stone, with claws that could tear through metal. They were one of the galaxy's premier warrior species. Proud of their strength and their long history of victories, the arena lights dimmed and the crowd noise rose to a roar. The match was beginning. From one entrance, the Rothkin champion emerged. His name was Gromak, and according to the information scrolling across Day One's datapad, he had never lost a fight in this arena. 43 victories, some of them brutal, all of them decisive. He raised his massive arms to the crowd, and they cheered. Even species that had no love for the Rothkin respected strength when they saw it. From the opposite entrance, a smaller figure appeared. Day One leaned forward. Something was wrong. The fighter was Villari, one of the feline species that made up part of the Galactic Council. But this fighter was young, barely more than a cub. The Villari were graceful fighters, quick and precise, but they relied on experience and training to overcome larger opponents. This one looked terrified. "That's just a kid," Day One said quietly. Ju checked her datapad, frowning. "The records say this is an adult fighter. But you're right, that's a juvenile. Something's wrong here." Around them, other observers were murmuring. The crowd below seemed confused as well. This wasn't the fight they had expected to see. The arena master, a tall insectoid named Clix, made the formal announcement. The fight was sanctioned. Both sides had agreed. Combat would continue until one fighter yielded or could no longer continue. The old laws, the old ways. Day One watched the young Villari, whose name appeared on his screen as Shin. The cub was trying to look brave, taking a fighting stance, but even from this distance, Day One could see the trembling in those small limbs. The bell sounded. The fight began. Gromuk didn't charge immediately. He walked forward slowly, confidently. He was a champion, and he knew it. The Villari cub circled, looking for an opening, but there was none. The size difference was too great. The experience gap was an ocean. Shin darted forward, trying for a quick strike, but Gromak batted the cub aside like swatting an insect. Shin tumbled across the arena floor, got up, tried again. Same result. The crowd's cheering had died down. This wasn't a fight. Everyone could see that now. Why isn't anyone stopping this? Day One asked. Ji Woo's face was tight with anger, but she shook her head. Sanctioned combat. Ancient rights. If they stop it now, it creates a political incident between species. The Villari delegation agreed to this fight. Did that kid agree? It doesn't matter legally. The challenge was issued, accepted. The arena laws are absolute. Day One watched Gromak hit Shin again, harder this time. The cub's cry of pain echoed through the arena. Some in the crowd looked away. Others cheered louder, caught up in the spectacle. Most simply watched, accepting this as the way of things. Shin tried to get up again. One eye was swollen shut now. Blood matted the fur on one side of the small face. Ribs were probably broken. The cub was crying, trying to hide it, trying to be brave. Gromak raised his arm for another strike, and Shin cried out, not in the Velari language, not in the formal tones of combat. In broken galactic standard, the common tongue everyone understood. Please ... help ... help ... The arena went silent. That wasn't a warrior asking for mercy in combat. That was a child begging for someone to save them. Day One stood up. Day One, no. Giwo's hand was on his arm instantly. Don't. You know what will happen if you interfere. I heard a child screaming, Day One said simply. This could start an interstellar incident. Earth could lose its diplomatic standing. You could be arrested, tried, executed, depending on whose laws apply. Please, think about this. Day One looked at her. Jiwoo was smart, dedicated, and absolutely right about the political consequences. He knew all of that. He understood the risks. He started walking toward the stairs that led down to the arena floor. Behind him, Jiwoo was speaking rapidly into her communicator, probably alerting the Earth Embassy. Around him, other observers were standing, pointing, talking in confusion. Humans didn't fight in the arena. Everyone knew that. Humans were diplomats, traders, scientists. They were soft, weak, with no natural weapons or armor. They were prey species trying to act like they belonged among predators. Day One reached the arena floor. The crowd noise had changed from silence to a confused roar. Thousands of voices asking the same question. What is that human doing? Clicks, the arena master, moved to intercept him. The insectoid was twice Day One's height, with mandibles that could crush bone. Human, you are forbidden from entering during sanctioned combat. Return to your seat. I'm issuing a challenge, Day One said clearly. Ancient rights. Any sentient being may enter the arena to challenge. Your own laws. Clix's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with annoyance. But the law was clear. The ancient rights existed for a reason, dating back to the formation of the Galactic Council itself. To refuse would violate the very foundations of arena combat. State your challenge, Clix said formally. I challenge Grolmok. Right now. Let the cub go. The crowd exploded into noise. Grolmok turned away from Shin, looking at Day One with what might have been amusement. The Rothkin champion had fought dozens of species. He had never fought a human, but he had seen them around the station. Small, fragile things. This one didn't even have armor or visible weapons. Day One walked to where Shin lay crumpled on the arena floor. He knelt down, checking the cub's injuries carefully. Broken ribs, definitely. Possible internal bleeding. One arm looked fractured. But the cub was alive. I've got you, kid, Day One said softly in the Velari language. He had studied it during his time here, thinking it might be useful for diplomatic work. Just stay down now. Don't try to move. Shin looked up at him with one good eye, confused, afraid, hopeful. Grolmak laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. You check on your enemy before fighting? You mock me, small thing? Day One stood up, turning to face the Rothkin champion. He was calm, his hands loose at his sides. He wore only his standard diplomatic uniform, dark blue with Earth's emblem on the shoulder. No armor, no weapons. I don't mock you, Day One said. I'm just making sure the kid knows someone came when they called for help. Grolmak's amusement turned to anger. In Rothkin culture, such words were an insult, claiming victory before the battle even began. The champion charged forward. All that massive weight and strength focused on crushing this small, soft human who dared to challenge him. The entire arena held its breath. 11 seconds later, it was over. Grolmak charged like a freight train, all that armor-plated bulk moving with surprising speed. His claws extended, ready to tear through the soft human flesh. In his mind, this would be quick. Embarrass the human, establish dominance, remind everyone why the Rothkin were warriors and humans were not. Day One didn't move until the last possible moment. Then he did 3 things in rapid sequence. First, he stepped to the side, not away, but at an angle that put him just outside Grolmak's reach. Second, he grabbed the Rothkin's extended arm with both hands, using the champion's own momentum against him. Third, He dropped his weight and twisted. The arena had never seen a Rothkin champion hit the ground so hard. Gromac's own charge, all that mass and power, became his enemy. Day one had simply redirected it, used physics and leverage instead of trying to match strength against strength. The Rothkin's face hit the arena floor with a sound like thunder, and the impact stunned him, but Gromac was a champion for a reason. Stunned or not, he started to rise, rage overtaking surprise. Day one was already moving. He had learned many things in his military training before becoming a diplomat. One of those things was that if you put an opponent down, you keep them down. His knee found the nerve cluster at the base of Gromac's spine, a spot that existed in most vertebrate species. His hands found pressure points on the Rothkin's thick neck. Gromac tried to throw him off. The Rothkin was stronger, absolutely, but strength didn't matter if you couldn't use it. Day one knew exactly where to press, how much force to apply, how to turn the body's own nervous system against itself. The Rothkin champion's roar of rage became a gasp of pain, then nothing. He went limp. 11 seconds. The arena timer displayed it for everyone to see. The crowd sat in absolute silence. No one knew how to react. This wasn't how fights worked. Champions didn't lose in 11 seconds. Humans didn't defeat Rothkin warriors. The natural order of things had just been turned upside down. Day one stood up slowly, checking that Gromac was unconscious but still breathing. He wasn't trying to kill anyone. He had just needed the fight to stop. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor, some heading for Gromac, others for the cub Shin. Clicks, the arena master, approached Day one with what might have been respect or might have been fear. With insectoid faces, it was hard to tell. "The challenge is satisfied," Clicks announced formally. "Victory to the human challenger," that broke the spell. The crowd erupted, some cheered, some shouted in anger. Most simply made confused noises, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. In the observation decks, diplomats and officials from dozens of species were already sending urgent messages to their HOMEWORL DS. Aru reached the arena floor, her face a mixture of relief and horror. "Day one, what have you done?" "Stopped a kid from getting killed," he said simply. "How's Shin?" "Alive, thanks to you." "But do you understand what happens now? The Rothkin delegation will demand satisfaction. Earth's position in the Galactic Council could be compromised. There will be consequences." "I know. Then why?" Day one looked at her. "Would you have been able to walk away after hearing that?" Jiwoo's expression softened. She sighed. No, I wouldn't have. But I've been doing this job long enough to have learned how to make myself not hear things I don't want to hear." "You haven't learned that yet." "I hope I never do." Security escorted Day one away from the arena floor. Not as a prisoner, not exactly, but protective custody was probably the right term. He was placed in a private room in the diplomatic quarter, comfortable but isolated. Through the window he could see the Crucible's endless corridors, aliens of 100 species going about their business. News of the fight spread through the station faster than he expected. Every screen seemed to be showing the footage, those 11 seconds played over and over in slow motion. Analysts from different species were already breaking down what had happened, trying to understand it. The door to his room opened. A Valari diplomat entered, older than Shin, with gray fur mixed into the darker patches. This was Ambassador Rail, if Day one remembered correctly. "Lieutenant Day one," Rail said, bowing in the Valari manner. "I come to thank you for saving young Shin's life. The cub is recovering in medical. Injuries are significant but not permanent." "I'm glad to hear that. What happened?" "Why was a cub?" "In the arena against a champion?" Rail's expression darkened. "Politics, honor disputes between families. Shin's family owed a debt to another clan. The other clan called for satisfaction through combat, as is their right under our laws. They should have sent an adult warrior, but they sent Shin instead, knowing the cub would lose. It was meant to be a lesson, a humiliation. It was murder dressed up as law," Day one said. "Yes, but proving that requires challenging powerful families, and my people's government decided the political cost was too high. So Shin went into the arena, and we all prepared to watch a child die because ancient laws mattered more than common sense. Day one said nothing. He was learning that politics in the galaxy often looked like politics back on Earth, just with more species involved. What you did was remarkable, Rail continued. Gromok is one of the finest warriors in the Rothkin Dominion. How did you defeat him so easily? It wasn't easy. He's strong and fast, but strength has weaknesses. Speed has predictability. I just used what I know about physics and anatomy. You study combat? All humans do, to some degree. We have to. Earth isn't a gentle place. You learn to protect yourself, or you don't survive long. Rail tilted their head, a Valari gesture of curiosity. I have studied your species since first contact. Your records indicate Earth is what you call a death world, but you describe yourselves as peaceful, focused on diplomacy and trade. We are focused on those things now, Day One said. But that doesn't erase our history. Humans have been fighting since we climbed down from trees. We got good at it because we had to. The door opened again. Jiwoo entered with several official-looking individuals, including representatives from the Earth Embassy. Their expressions were not encouraging. Day one, we need to talk, Jiwoo said. The Rothkin Dominion has filed a formal complaint. They're calling your actions assault on their champion. They want you tried under arena law. What does that mean? It means a trial, probably with combat elements. But there's more. The Rothkin aren't the only ones paying attention now. Every species with combat traditions is suddenly very interested in humans. The footage of your fight is being analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy. One of the embassy officials, a stern-looking woman named Heijin, stepped forward. Lieutenant, your service record indicates you were Special Forces before transferring to the Diplomatic Corps. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. What you did in that arena, is that standard training for human military personnel? Day one thought about how to answer that. Basic principles, yes. We're taught to use leverage, to target weak points, to end fights quickly. The specific techniques depend on training and experience. Heijin exchanged glances with the other officials. How many humans have that level of training? Military personnel? Millions. Civilian martial arts practitioners? Hundreds of millions more. Most humans learn some form of self-defense at some point in their lives. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. The Galactic Council is requesting information about Earth's military capabilities, Iwu said quietly. They're specifically asking about combat training and warrior traditions. We've always downplayed those aspects, emphasized our diplomatic and scientific contributions. Now they're wondering what else we've been downplaying. I didn't mean to start a political crisis, Day One said. I just couldn't let that kid die. We know, Heijin said. And honestly, most of Earth is proud of what you did. The footage has reached home, and you're being called a hero. But heroes often make terrible diplomats, and right now, humanity needs careful diplomacy more than heroic gestures. Ambassador Rail, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. If I may offer a perspective, what Lieutenant Day One did was not just heroic, it was a statement. For years, humans have presented themselves as harmless, non-threatening. The galaxy accepted this because humans seemed weak. Now you have shown that this was an illusion. The question every species is asking is not whether you are dangerous, but how dangerous you truly are. And that question, Jiwoo added, is exactly what the Rothkin Dominion is asking through their formal challenge. They're not just seeking satisfaction for their defeated champion. They're testing humanity's position in the galactic hierarchy. If we back down, humans remain low status. If we stand firm, we risk conflict. Day One looked out the window again, at the diverse species moving through the crucible. Somewhere in the medical bay, a young Valari cub was recovering, alive because someone had answered their cry for help. Whatever political consequences came from that, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. What happens now? He asked. Heijin's expression was grim. Now, Lieutenant, Earth decides whether we're warriors or diplomats. And I suspect that decision will define our place in the galaxy for generations to come. Back on Earth, in the city of Seoul, A meeting room in the Terran Defense Force headquarters filled with military officials and intelligence analysts. On the main screen, the arena footage played for the 100th time. 11 seconds that had changed everything. Commander Heijin, recently arrived from the Crucible, stood at the front of the room. She was Day One's younger sister, though few people knew that connection. She worked in military intelligence, analyzing threats and capabilities. Today, she was presenting findings that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. The galactic community is experiencing what we're calling a perception correction, she began. For 15 years, humanity has been viewed as non-threatening. We encourage this view. We sent diplomats, scientists, traders. We talked about peace and cooperation. We carefully avoided mentioning our military capabilities. That was the strategy, an admiral said. We were new, weak compared to established powers. Better to seem harmless than to provoke conflict we couldn't win. Agreed. But my brother's actions in the arena have made that strategy impossible to maintain. Every species with military intelligence is now investigating Earth's combat capabilities. What they're finding is making them nervous. Heijin pulled up a document on the screen. This is a report compiled by a Valari researcher named Tashir. It's been shared with several governments already. I'll summarize the key points. The room went quiet as she began. Point 1. Humans have been in continuous warfare for their entire recorded history. Not occasional wars separated by decades or centuries of peace. Like most species, continuous. There has not been a single year in recorded human history without armed conflict somewhere on Earth. Someone in the back whistled softly. Point 2. Humans have developed more than 3,000 distinct martial arts systems. Most species have one, maybe two combat traditions. We have thousands, each adapted to different situations, weapons, and philosophies. Point 3. Human warfare is industrialized. We don't just train warriors. We mass-produce them. Our military training programs can turn millions of civilians into competent soldiers in months. No other species operates on this scale. Heijin paused, letting that sink in. Point 4, and this is the one that's frightening them the most. We primarily fight ourselves. The deadliest wars in human history were human versus human. We've killed more of our own species than most species have killed in total across their entire histories. The screen changed to casualty statistics. World War I, 20 million dead. World War II, 80 million. The Resource Wars, 150 million. Numbers that dwarfed most galactic conflicts. They're calling us the species that weaponize combat, Heijin said. While other species stopped fighting once they reached civilization, we refined warfare into a science. We studied it, improved it, taught it to every generation. We turned killing into an academic discipline. The admiral leaned forward. What's their assessment of our threat level? Unknown but potentially extreme? Tashir's report notes that we defeated one of the galaxy's premier warrior champions in 11 seconds using basic combat principles. The question every military strategist is asking is, what happens when we use advanced combat principles? What happens if we actually try? An intelligence officer spoke up. Are we being reclassified? Unofficially, yes. Several species are moving us from the harmless category to threat assessment pending. The Rothkin Dominion is particularly concerned. Their entire culture is built around warrior superiority. Having one of their champions defeated so easily by a species they considered weak has damaged their prestige. Back on the Crucible, Day One was in the medical bay with Shin. The young Valari was awake now, bandaged and healing. Modern medicine could work wonders, and the doctors expected a full recovery. Why did you help me? Shin asked. The cub's voice was stronger now, though still weak. You didn't know me. Humans had nothing to gain. Day One thought about how to explain it. On Earth, we have a saying, see something, say something. It means if you see someone in trouble, you don't just walk away. You help, or you find someone who can help. But you put yourself in danger. You risked your position, your species' reputation, for a stranger. You weren't a stranger when you called for help. You were a kid who needed someone to come when they screamed. That's all that mattered. Shin was quiet for a moment. The other species don't think like that. They follow laws, traditions. Individual suffering matters less than maintaining order. Maybe, but that's not how humans work. We've learned the hard way that laws and traditions can be wrong. Sometimes you have to break the rules to do the right thing. Ambassador Rail entered the medical bay looking troubled. Lieutenant Day 1, there's news? The Rothkin Dominion has issued a formal blood challenge. Not just against you, but against Earth itself. Day 1 stood. What does that mean? The Grand Tournament. It's held once every 5 years, where species send their finest warriors to compete. The Rothkin are demanding humanity participate. If you refuse, Earth is formally recognized as a prey species, low status in the galactic hierarchy. If you accept, you must send representatives who can compete against the galaxy's best warriors. When? 3 weeks. The tournament begins in 3 weeks on Nexus Prime. Day 1 knew what Earth's response would be before the official message arrived. Humanity couldn't back down now. They had shown they could fight. Refusing to prove it would be worse than never fighting at all. The message came through that evening. Earth was accepting the challenge. They were sending 5 representatives to the Grand Tournament. And Day 1 was one of them. The other 4 arrived on the Crucible 2 days later. Day 1 met them in a secure conference room. Tae-young was former Special Forces, like Day 1, but her specialty was asymmetric warfare. She was small, quick, and according to her file, had spent 3 years training resistance fighters on colony worlds. She looked at combat like a puzzle to solve, not a contest to win. Yuna was a martial arts master who had trained in 6 different systems. She taught at military academies and had written books on combat theory. She was calm, centered, and moved with an efficiency that came from decades of practice. Kyung-Su was different from the others. He was a strategic analyst, someone who studied combat patterns and decision trees. He had never served in active military, but his understanding of tactical thinking was legendary. He treated fights like chess matches, always thinking 3 moves ahead. So Min was a combat medic, which seemed odd until Day 1 learned her specialty. She understood anatomy at a level that was almost frightening. She knew where every species' weak points were, how their bodies worked, what would disable without killing. She could heal wounds or create them with equal precision. This is our team, Heijin said, having come from Earth with them. 5 representatives for 5 combat categories. The tournament rules allow for team tactics in some rounds, individual combat in others. You'll have 2 weeks to train together before traveling to Nexus Prime. What are we up against? Tae-young asked. Everything. The Rothkin, obviously. They're sending their finest warriors, including Grolmak's clan brother Nargith, who is reportedly even more dangerous. The Velari are sending competitors, though they've indicated they're friendly to our cause. The Krellian horde is participating. They're a warrior culture that makes the Rothkin look gentle. There are at least 30 species entering fighters. Kyung-Su was studying data on his tablet. Interesting. Most species are entering traditional warriors, champions who have trained for years in their species' combat styles. We're entering specialists with different approaches. It's asymmetric by design. It has to be, Day 1 said. We can't beat them at their own game. We're not as strong as Rothkin, not as fast as Velari, not as armored as Krellian. But we adapt. That's what humans do best. Yuna nodded. Every species has advantages we can't match. So we match our advantages. Pattern recognition. Tool use. Tactical flexibility. We've spent 10,000 years learning how to beat opponents who are bigger, stronger, and better armed than us. Will it be enough? Somin asked quietly. No one had an answer for that. Training began the next day. The Crucible had combat facilities that could simulate different environments and gravity levels. The team worked through scenarios, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Day 1 noticed that other species were watching their training sessions. Word had spread about the arena incident, and now everyone wanted to see what humans could do. Some watchers were curious. Others were clearly scouting potential opponents. One evening, Shin visited the training area. The young Velari was recovering well, moving without much pain now. "I wanted to thank you again," Shin said, "and to say that my people are cheering for humanity in the tournament. You showed us that strength isn't just about following traditions. Sometimes it's about knowing when traditions are wrong." "Your people are entering fighters too," Day One noted. "Yes, but they've been instructed not to fight humans unless necessary. We consider you allies now. What you did for me, it mattered. Not just to me, but to everyone who watched. You proved that doing the right thing is more important than doing the legal thing." After Shin left, Juwoo approached Day One. "You know what you've started, don't you? This isn't just about one tournament anymore." Nexus Prime was beautiful in a way that made Day One uncomfortable. The entire planet was engineered, designed specifically to host events like the Grand Tournament. Perfect weather, perfect facilities, perfect terrain for any type of combat imaginable. Nothing here was natural, and somehow that made everything feel artificial, like a stage set for a play. The human team arrived 3 days before the tournament began. They were assigned quarters in the competitor district, where warriors from dozens of species prepared for battle. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation and barely controlled aggression, walking through the common areas. Day One saw fighters that made Grelmak look small. There were Krellian warriors, massive insectoid creatures with razor-sharp limbs and natural armor that could deflect most weapons. There were Sulfex champions, beings of crystalline structure who could reshape their bodies mid-combat. There were species he had never seen before, some beautiful, some terrifying, all deadly. "We're going to die," Tae-young said cheerfully. She had a dark sense of humor that Day One was learning to appreciate. "Probably," Kyung-soo agreed, studying the other competitors with clinical interest. "But we'll make it interesting first." The tournament format was explained at the opening ceremony. Single elimination brackets, with combat styles varying by round. Some fights would be traditional duels. Others would be team-based tactical scenarios. A few would be survival challenges in hostile environments. The variety was intentional, designed to test different aspects of warrior capability. Humans were placed in brackets that seemed designed to humiliate them quickly. Day One suspected the tournament organizers expected humanity to be eliminated in the first round, serving as a demonstration that the arena incident had been a fluke. They were about to learn. Otherwise, Tae-young's first match was against a Rothkan warrior named Krell, not a champion of Grelmak's caliber, but still formidable. The fight was set in an urban environment simulation. A maze of buildings and narrow streets. The match began and Krell charged forward, relying on Rothkan traditions of direct confrontation and overwhelming force. Tae-young disappeared into the buildings. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. The crowd grew restless. Where was the human? Had she fled? Then Krell screamed, not in rage but in pain and confusion. He spun around, trying to find his opponent, but there was only a brief glimpse of movement, then another impact from a different angle. Tae-young was using the environment, striking from unexpected positions, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. It wasn't honorable by Rothkan standards. It was ambush tactics, guerrilla warfare, the kind of fighting humans had perfected over centuries of asymmetric conflicts. Krell couldn't adapt fast enough. Within 8 minutes he was down, defeated by an opponent he had barely seen. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some species respected the tactical brilliance. Others called it cowardice. Tae-young didn't care about either opinion. She had won, and that was what mattered. Yuna's first match was different. She faced a Velari warrior named Shin, an experienced fighter with decades of training. The match was set in a traditional arena, no tricks, no environmental advantages. Pure combat skill. Shin was faster than any human could be, with reflexes that seemed impossible. The Velari warrior's first strike should have ended the fight immediately. But Yuna wasn't where Shin expected her to be. The martial arts master had studied Velari movement patterns during the preparation weeks. She knew how they fought, what their attacks looked like. Where their strikes would land, more importantly, she understood leverage and biomechanics. When Shin struck, Yuna didn't try to block the speed. She redirected the force, used the Villari's own momentum against them. It was beautiful to watch, like a dance where every movement flowed into the next. Shin adapted, of course. Good fighters always do. But Yuna adapted faster. She had trained in 6 different martial arts systems, each with different principles and techniques. When one approach stopped working, she switched to another. Shin was fighting one opponent with 6 different fighting styles, and couldn't predict what would come next. The match ended with Shin on the ground, trapped in a joint lock that made continuing impossible. The Villari warrior yielded with respect in their eyes. This had been a true test of skill, and the human had won fairly. Kyung-Soo's match was the strangest. He faced a warrior from a species called the Dravaks, heavy-gravity world natives with incredible strength and endurance. The match was set in a multi-level arena with various obstacles and weapons available. For the first 2 minutes, Kyung-Soo didn't even try to fight. He moved around the arena, studying his opponent, watching how the Dravaks warrior moved, what choices they made, how they responded to different situations. The crowd thought he was stalling. His team knew better. Then Kyung-Soo began to fight, and it was like watching someone solve a puzzle in real time. Every move he made was deliberate, calculated. He wasn't trying to overpower the Dravaks. He was testing hypotheses. Each attack was an experiment, each defense a data point. The Dravaks warrior grew frustrated, making mistakes, becoming predictable. Kyung-Soo exploited every error with surgical precision. He turned the fight into a math problem, and math problems have solutions. When the match ended, the Dravaks warrior looked confused about how they had lost to someone who seemed weaker and slower. So Min's match disturbed even the human team. She faced a Krellian warrior, one of the insectoid species with natural armor and lethal striking limbs. The match should have been impossible for a human. Krellian were designed by evolution for combat. So Min studied the Krellian for exactly 15 seconds. Then she moved, and her strikes were so precise they seemed unnatural. She hit nerve clusters that even the Krellian didn't know they had. She targeted joint weaknesses in the armor plating. She moved like someone who could see through her opponent's body, identifying every vulnerable point instantly. The Krellian warrior went down in less than a minute. Conscious but unable to move, their body's own nervous system turned against them. Somin had won without causing any permanent damage, but the efficiency of it was frightening. Several species in the audience began researching human medical knowledge, suddenly concerned about what else humans understood about biology. Day 1's first match came on day 3. His opponent was a Rothkan warrior named Thrak, sent specifically to avenge Gromak's defeat. The crowd anticipated this match more than any other in the early rounds. The match was set in a standard arena, similar to the Crucible. Thrak entered with ceremony and confidence. He had studied the footage of Day 1's fight with Gromak 1,000 times. He knew the human's tricks now. He would not be caught off guard. Day 1 entered quietly, wearing the same simple uniform he had worn in the Crucible. No armor, no weapons, no dramatics. Just a human who had heard a child scream and couldn't walk away. The fight began. Thrak was smarter than Gromak, more cautious. He didn't charge blindly. He tested Day 1's defenses, looking for openings, trying to adapt to the human style. Day 1 let him. For almost a minute, he mostly defended, occasionally countering, studying his opponent just as much as Thrak was studying him. The crowd grew tense. This was lasting longer than the 11-second fight that had started everything. Then Day 1 saw what he was looking for. A slight hesitation in Thrak's left side, probably an old injury that hadn't healed perfectly. The Rothkan was compensating for it unconsciously, favoring his right side by just a fraction. Day 1 moved. His attack came from the left, exploiting the weakness. Thrak tried to defend, but his body betrayed him, the old injury making him just a fraction slower. Day 1's strike found its target, and suddenly the Rothkan warrior was on the ground. Day 1's knee on his back. Pressure applied to the same nerve points that had ended the fight with Gromak, 28 seconds. Longer than the first fight, but still devastating in its efficiency, the tournament continued and a pattern emerged. Humans didn't win every match. In the second round, Taeyong faced a warrior who adapted to her ambush tactics and defeated her. But she made them work hard for it, and she eliminated 2 opponents before losing. The other humans kept advancing. Each match revealed something new about human combat philosophy. They didn't rely on one approach. They adapted constantly. They used unconventional tactics. They studied their opponents and found weaknesses that other species didn't think to look for. By the end of the first week, 3 humans remained in the tournament: Daewon, Yuna, and Kyungsoo. They had outlasted warriors from dozens of species, some with centuries more combat experience. The galactic audience was changing its opinion of humanity. These weren't weak prey species pretending to be warriors. These were something else entirely. Something that had learned to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen before. In the competitor quarters, the human team gathered to review the week's matches. They had done well, but the hardest fights were still coming. The tournament had eliminated the weaker competitors. Now they faced only the best warriors the galaxy had to offer. "Tomorrow I fight Nargith," Daewon said. Grolmak's clan brother. The Rothkins say he's even more dangerous than Grolmak was. "You beat Grolmak in 11 seconds, Somin pointed out. "Because he underestimated me. Nargith won't make that mistake." The championship arena on Nexus Prime was different from the smaller venues where earlier matches had taken place. It was massive, built to hold over 100,000 spectators. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from every Galactic Council species had come to witness this match. Daewon stood in the preparation room, checking his uniform one last time. Through the walls, he could hear the crowd noise, a sound like thunder that never stopped. Ji Woo had arrived from the Crucible for the final match, and she sat quietly in the corner watching him. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You've already proven humanity's point." 3 humans in the final rounds of the Grand Tournament. That's more than anyone expected. You could forfeit and Earth would still gain tremendous status. And let the Rothkin claim we backed down when it mattered? Is pride worth risking your life? Nargith has killed opponents in sanctioned combat before. The rules allow it if the death is accidental or the opponent refuses to yield. Daewon turned to face her. This stopped being about pride after the first day. You've seen how the other species are reacting. The young warriors, the ones who don't have status or power yet. They're watching us and thinking maybe they don't have to follow the old ways. Maybe strength isn't just about being the biggest or the strongest. Maybe there's another path. You sound like you're starting a revolution. Maybe we are? Someone has to. The call came. It was time. Daewon walked through the tunnel toward the arena floor. The noise of the crowd grew louder with each step, a physical pressure against his ears. He emerged into blinding light and overwhelming sound. 100,000 voices, most of them probably betting against him, across the arena. Nargith emerged from the opposite tunnel. The Rothkin warrior was even larger than Grolmak had been, covered in battle scars that told stories of countless victories. His armor plating looked like it had been reinforced with metal, and his claws had been sharpened to razor edges. The arena master, the same Clix from the Crucible, stood at the center. The insectoid's voice boomed through speakers. This match represents a blood challenge between species. Rothkin Dominion versus Terran Sovereignty. The rules are simple. Combat continues until yield, incapacitation, or death. There are no other restrictions. That got Daewon's attention. Most matches had rules about what techniques were allowed. This match had none. Anything was permitted. Nargith smiled, showing teeth designed to tear flesh. Your tricks won't work on me, human. I've studied everything you did to my brother. I know how you move, how you think. You're about to learn why the Rothkin have been warriors for 10,000 years while your species was still climbing trees. Maybe, Daewon said calmly. Or maybe you're about to learn why we stopped climbing trees and started climbing the food chain. The bell sounded. Nargith didn't charge. He had learned from his brother's mistake. He advanced carefully, controlling the distance, cutting off angles of escape. His strategy was clear: use his size and reach advantage. Don't give the human any opportunities to get close. It was a good strategy. It might have even worked. Day one moved first, but not toward Nargeth. He moved laterally, forcing the Rothkin to adjust, to turn. He was testing response time, watching how quickly Nargeth could change direction with all that mass and armor. Fast enough to be dangerous, but not fast enough to be unpredictable. The crowd was silent now, watching two fighters who actually understood combat at a deep level. This wasn't the arena incident where an overconfident champion had been beaten in seconds. This was two warriors who knew what they were doing, testing each other. Looking for advantages, Nargeth struck first, a powerful swipe that would have torn Day One apart if it connected. But Day One wasn't there, rolling under the strike and coming up behind the Rothkin. His hands found pressure points, but Nargeth had armored those areas. The Rothkin spun, faster than something that large should be able to move, and his backhand sent Day One flying. The impact hurt. Day One felt ribs crack as he hit the arena floor. But pain was just information, and he had trained to fight through information. He got up. Nargeth pressed the advantage, not giving time to recover. A flurry of strikes, each one potentially lethal. Day One defended, redirected, used every technique he knew to survive. But Nargeth was too good. The Rothkin warrior had studied human fighting styles and adapted his own style to counter them. Day One took another hit, this one to his left arm. Something broke? The arm went numb. In the stands, Ji Woo was on her feet, screaming for him to yield. The human team looked tense. Even other species who had been cheering against humanity seemed uncomfortable. This was starting to look like an execution. Day One backed away, creating distance. His left arm was useless. His ribs were broken. Nargeth was barely breathing hard. The Rothkin warrior advanced, confident in his victory. And then Day One remembered why he was here. He had entered the Crucible's arena because he heard a child screaming for help. He hadn't thought about the consequences or the politics or what it meant for humanity's status. He had just known that someone needed help, and he couldn't walk away. That same principle applied now. Every young warrior in the galaxy who was watching this match, hoping to see that strength could mean something different than it had always meant. They needed someone to keep fighting, to show them that you don't quit just because the situation looks impossible. Day One stopped backing away. He started moving forward. Nargeth saw the change and hesitated for just a moment, confused. The human should be retreating, should be yielding. Why was he advancing? Day One switched tactics. He had been fighting conservatively, trying to avoid damage, looking for a clean victory. That wasn't going to work. Nargeth was too skilled, too prepared. So Day One stopped fighting like a diplomat trying to minimize conflict. He started fighting like a human who had grown up on a death world where everything was trying to kill you. And the only way to survive was to be more dangerous than the things hunting you. He went low, targeting the Rothkin's knees. Not the armored front, but the sides where joints had to flex. He used his good arm like a weapon, striking nerve clusters with precision that came from Somin's anatomy lessons. He didn't try to avoid damage anymore. He traded hits, accepting pain to deliver his own strikes. It was brutal, ugly fighting. Nothing like the technical precision Yuna had shown or the tactical brilliance Taeyong had demonstrated. This was desperate, savage, the kind of combat that humans had learned in caves and jungles when they were prey species trying to become predators. Nargeth's confidence started to crack. The human wasn't fighting like a warrior. He was fighting like something cornered and dangerous. Every time the Rothkin landed a hit, the human got back up and came forward again. It was like fighting a natural disaster that wouldn't stop. Then Day One saw his opening. Nargeth's left leg was compensating for accumulated damage, putting more weight on the right. It was a small imbalance, barely noticeable. But Day One had learned to look for small things. He dropped low, sweeping the right leg with everything he had left. Nargeth's weight was already committed to that leg. The Rothkin warrior fell, and for the first time in the match, he looked genuinely surprised. Day One didn't give him time to recover. He was on top of the fallen Rothkin immediately, his good arm finding the nerve points on Nargeth's neck. The same technique that had ended the fight with Grolmek, but Nargith was better trained than his brother. He knew how to counter that technique. His own hands came up, gripping Day One's throat, starting to squeeze. The arena held its breath. Both fighters were in holds that could end the match. Whoever broke first would lose. Day One's vision started to gray at the edges. He couldn't breathe. In maybe 10 seconds he would pass out, and the match would be over. He thought about Shin, the young Valari cub who had cried out for help. He thought about all the young warriors watching this match, hoping to see something different than the same old patterns of might making right, and he held on. Nargith's eyes went wide with shock. The human should have passed out by now. Should have yielded. Should have given up. But he wasn't giving up. Even as consciousness faded, even as his body started to shut down, the human kept applying pressure to those nerve points. Nargith felt his own body betraying him. The nerves firing wrong, muscles locking up. He tried to increase pressure on the human's throat, but his hands wouldn't respond correctly anymore. The Rothkin warrior made a choice. He released his grip and slapped the arena floor 3 times. The formal sign of yielding. The crowd erupted in sound, so loud it was almost painful. Day One released his hold and rolled away, gasping for air. His vision cleared slowly. He saw cliques approaching, saw medical teams running onto the arena floor for both fighters. "Victory to the human challenger," cliques announced. "The blood challenge is satisfied. Terran sovereignty has proven their warrior status." 3 days later, Day One sat in the medical bay on the Crucible. His injuries were healing with the help of advanced medicine, though the doctors said he would be sore for weeks. Broken ribs, fractured arm, severe bruising, and a concussion. He had been lucky. Shin visited, looking much healthier now. The young Valari's injuries had healed completely. "You won?" Shin said. "Everyone is talking about it. The humans who fought like no one expected.